Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Today we're going to be talking about what the future holds for Need for Speed as a series. Now, obviously, Need for Speed is a long running franchise, started from 1994 up until now, still going on. It's kind of surreal how long this series has been going for and how much ups and downs it went through. Like, there's been so many games that weren't that didn't really hit the mark, and there are games that were are praised to this day still, like after 20 years and stuff like that, from the games from the golden era. So like, I'm talking 2000s, bro. Like, those games are still praised today, to this day. And then we got the games that kind of let the series down a bit, quite a lot actually, with the recent games and things like that. So it's kind of weird that the series is still going on, it's still going strong. So I would just like to discuss on what the future holds for this game. What should we be expecting for the next game, or what criterion would bring to the table, as what they did with Unbound was somewhat decent. We'll see what they can do with the next game. So I just want to talk about these type of things. So now let me talk about the series as a whole right now. Obviously the series started with the classic era, so 1994 to 2002. We had these lighthearted, exotic, cop versus racer type of games. The first two weren't really about the cops versus racers. They didn't really get into that until the third game, in which it kind of took that little aspect into what the series is known for right now, like cops versus racers. That's what the series is known for at this moment in time. And like, now we think that when Need for Speed doesn't have cops, it's like, what kind of thing is that? So yeah, ultimately the classic era was just very simple, fun games to play. They weren't too crazy. We didn't get too crazy until the golden era of the series, so 2003 to 2006. So we started the golden era with Underground 1. Now, Underground 1, I don't need to say why this game did what it did and revolutionized the series. It just revolutionized the series as to what we see it today. Mainly the main theme going on with the series is street racing, and it has been since this game made it so that it street race is the prominent theme throughout these games. The last 4 games we had, or 5 games or something like that, we have for Need for Speed are prominently street racing games. We haven't really had a Hot Pursuit title since Rivals, and Rivals 2013, right? So that was a long time ago, and since then we've been having 4 or 5 games. So we really only really get street racing games right now, and it has to do with this game. So Underground 1 just set the bar up high, and it took this series as to what we know it today. If it wasn't for this game, the series probably would have been dead. It would have probably been dead. So yeah. And then we also got Underground 2, the sequel, crazy game. Most Wanted 5, even crazier, regarded as one of the best racing games by literally everybody. And then Carbon, which was a good sequel to a already amazing game. And yeah, man, like, the golden era is the best of the best. Is what you get out of the series, is the best. Now we have the experimental era, as I like call it. Now this is where Need for Speed started getting to a place where they were just kind of like experimenting with all kind of different stuff. So they started this era with Pro Street, I would say, is where they like took the series into the closed track areas. It's still like street racing, but like not street racing, not legal street racing. Like, if that makes sense, like I don't know how to exactly explain it, but like legal street racing on the track, that's what this game is. That's what Pro Street is. And then the year after that, they did Undercover, which it was kind of like Most Wanted 5. They tried to be Most Wanted 5 and Carbon, but kind of failed in that department and didn't hit the mark in any way, shape, or form. It's just a much downgraded version. And then in 2009, they did they did Shift with Slightly Mad Studios, and also Shift 2 later on in 2011, and also Nitro within that same year, 2009. So those games are they're not really Need for Speeds. They're so that's why I would say that this is the experimental era, and they really weren't like, they were just trying new different things and try and see what worked and what didn't work. And for the most part, the things that they're putting out didn't really work. The only games that I'd say that worked throughout this era is like Pro Street, Hot Pursuit 2010, and The Run. All the other games didn't really hit the mark as what they wanted to, and even Pro Street and The Run are the games that wasn't really like well received at the time. And now when you look at it now, people are like saying that these games are misjudged and whatever, and because these games weren't really like well received at the time. And for the only well received game from this era is Hot Pursuit 2010, I think, and that game is very solid. It's just a perfect classic modernized version of Hot Pursuit, which is exactly what you would, for the classic Need for Speed fans, that's the game you would go for if you wanted a modern type Need for Speed that still, had the classic counterpart or the classic aspects. So Hot Pursuit 2010 was the game you wanted to go. So that was the experimental area, 2007 to 2011. Then we got the modern era. So the modern era is from 2012 to present. So Most Wanted 2012 to Unbound, and these are the games that tried their best to do well, but most of the games in this era didn't do as well as they wanted it to, and some of these games didn't really get well received. And so I say the only 2 games out of the 6 games that was actually good were Heat and Unbound. Everything else were kind of like either people liked it or either people hated it. It was like very mixed in terms of what people liked about or hated about the other games as opposed to Heat and Unbound. Most people love Heat, most people love Unbound or like Unbound, or just hate it because woke or whatever. I don't know what people do. I don't know. Unbound's not woke. But anyway, so Most Wanted 2012, Rivals 2015, and Payback didn't really do very well in the eyes of the players and the eyes of critics and all that kind of stuff. Like these games didn't really do well because they didn't really hit the mark as people wanted to. Obviously, Most Wanted 2012 was not Most Wanted, making it one of the most hated Need for Speeds. And then you got Rivals, which is just like nothing really wrong with it, but just a broken mess. Like it had a lot of bugs in it, and it didn't, they didn't have a lot of time to make it. Ghost and Criterion didn't have a lot of time to make it. Then we got 2015, and 2015, I could say a lot about that game. It's just mid overall. It has a good atmosphere. It has the aspects you would want out of a street racing game. It just didn't have the core the core things you would want to get right in gameplay standpoint, like the handling and the overall just feel of the game is just not good. Also, the story isn't good either. Well, that's another thing. And then we got Payback, which did kind of better than 2015, but also did worse than 2015 for a lot of reasons. Like, for example, the handling was better, so in that way it was better than 2015. But then the the car performance upgrading system wasn't better, and it was a lot worse. You had to kind of pay real money to get the parts you would want, in which they were RNG, so it was just like overall bad. And then you got to Heat, which completely like was just a lot better than all the other games, and was kind of what we needed from the series. And then Unbound took what he did right and just expanded on that to, so those are the games for the modern era. And obviously now we're waiting for the next game, which I don't know when it's going to come out, but Criterion is going to take they're going to take the role to make the next game again. And from their catalog, they made 2010, Hot Pursuit 2010, Most Wanted 2012, and obviously Unbound. So these three games, I feel that they're all good. Hot Pursuit 2010 is a very solid game, very solid classic X modern Need for Speed. Then you got Most Wanted 2012, which didn't have the right title, but I enjoyed this game. I like this. I really like this game, and I can't hate it for obviously the game didn't have a good progression system at all. There's no progression, period. But the game was enjoyable to play. And you got Unbound, which essentially took what he did right and expanded on those features. The only thing I would say Unbound is kind of worse than Heat is the story. The story in Unbound isn't as intriguing, and as there's not much stakes in Unbound as opposed to Heat in terms of the story. But everything else, I feel Heat or Unbound does better than Heat. The map is better. The overall online is better, way better. And then, you got the handling, which I feel is better as well, because there's actual grip. You can actually do grip and not really have much consequences with it as you did with 2015. And yeah, you can still drift if you wanted to do drift type handling. You still was able to do that. So the handling was better. And yeah, man, like I feel this Unbound is just, the single player, I would say in Heat is better than Unbound, because the single player in Unbound isn't like that good just because of the story, but everything else is better than Heat. So that's what it is. So what do I think what Criterion is going to take with Need for Speed? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what they can do with the next game. What I would want for the next game is to overall like have like a darker type of, a deeper game, like a deeper vibe type of game. I wanted like a game that has like very high stakes, and within the story. Obviously, you can't really have Need for Speed without a story, in my opinion. And if a Need for Speed doesn't have a story, it's kind of like, what's the point, in my opinion? So I want the story to be deeper. I want it to have like actual stakes. I also want like the overall game to just feel like, I don't know. I don't really know what to say about what I exactly want from the game, but that's what I'm thinking right now at this point. Obviously Criterion did make Hot Pursuit 2010, so they could bring back the Hot Pursuit type of game again, but I don't really want it for the next game. Like if they're gonna make a lot more games after this, after this next game, they could go back to Hot Pursuit and do Hot Pursuit like in like an open world setting that is essentially Rivals, but just way better, just overall way more polished and with possibly customization. That would be crazy. We never seen that with the Hot Pursuit game, so that would be pretty different, and maybe like a story that you can maybe adapt. We've never really seen a Hot Pursuit game that has adapted a story, so that would be interesting. But for the next game, I would like it to be another street racing type of Need for Speed with a deeper vibe, darker vibe, high stakes. That would be great. I want to see how Criterion can adapt that into the Need for Speed game. They tried doing that with Most Wanted 2012. If you guys didn't know, Most Wanted 2012 wasn't gonna be it wasn't gonna be how it was. It was gonna be a proper sequel to Most Wanted 05. It was supposed to be that, but they didn't have the time to make that, so they had to scrap it all and make the Most Wanted 2012 we see today. So obviously they tried doing it before, and the Criterion back then isn't the Criterion we have now. Obviously all the staff are completely different from what it was back then to what it is now. So like obviously I know that, but it's the same studio, so I believe that they can probably do something. And they made Unbound, so like, you know, Unbound wasn't really like that crazy when it came to the dark vibe or the like the higher stake type of feel that he kind of brought to the table. But I feel like Criterion can do something like that. They have the set pieces, or they have the foundation that they could be able to do so. So that's obviously what I think about when it comes to what's next for the Need for Speed franchise. I don't know when they're gonna start working on the game, because they're working on Battlefield again. Criterion is working on Battlefield again, but I hope it comes out like at least 2026, the earliest, if that's even possible. I don't know when they're gonna start working on the game, but I don't think 2025 is gonna be possible because GTA 5 or GTA 6. So anyways, that's all.